nice bit of perspective, I imagine it gives everyone having all the kids coming today.
Yeah, it is. I think there's sort of, I guess, only a few games throughout the year that probably transcends the game itself, and feeling like you can have a real lasting impact. And clearly, this is one of those games. We're really privileged to be able to be partaking in this. I think obviously North Melbourne are doing a fantastic job with the event itself. Obviously, we get to be the opponents, but we feel like we own it as much as them. And so our responsibility is to obviously put on the show and make sure that we have a responsibility to play at our best. But in the background of all that is far bigger stories.
Why has Elijah done enough to prove to you that he's ready to return to footy, which is great to see him? What's he done to make sure that he's good?
Oh, he's done what he's needed to. I mean, obviously he took his leave and has got to work ever since. And can't fault the way that he's been able to approach it's been probably 6 or 7 weeks over the last little period of time. So he's earned the right to get back in. Clearly, he's got a role to play, very important role to play for us. And we just want to be able to establish that consistency with the way he plays. He improves our system, at his very best. But at the same time, our expectations are that he just come in and get his job done, and he'll contribute to hopefully a win in the end.
Both Harry unavailable or Brody going down for the season. How do you reshuffle the magnets this week? Does Tom spend more time forward to Tom de Koning?
Yeah, possibly. That's a definite option. Obviously we've settled on a few of those things without divulging too much. But we probably, maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago, our sort of rucks disappeared for a few weeks because they were injured, but they're now fit and healthy, so it certainly gives us options to be able to maybe look at a few different ways to be able to tackle that.
Vossy, can you shed any light on what happened with the dismissal of the staffer? Are you in a position to add any context to what happened in that regard?
No, I can't. As you imagine, I don't have a hell of a lot of visibility on that. What I do know is that the club's obviously managing it, and it's been managed at the right level. Yeah.
What were you told about it?
I don't have any visibility on it, so I couldn't even add any further commentary outside now. I know it's been dealt with, and the club's taken care of it.
So
yeah.
No one says to you, hey, just so you're aware, we have to deal with this.
I've taken my stance on where we're going with it, and I think you just need to know that from my point of view, it's about tomorrow, about North Melbourne and how I coach the football team, and Isley fixed on how we establish the consistency we need to be able to get the most out of our season.
With that going on, do you think there's a culture problem within the organisation somewhere?
I think you'd have to probably fire those questions at a couple other people who've got more visibility on it. So from my point of view, it's really comfortable with where our playing group's at. I'm really comfortable with where our environment is. We're firmly fixed, as you can imagine, on making sure that we make a good account of ourselves tomorrow night and obviously do this event justice.
On Tom, mentioned before, so much talk about contract talks being put off. How much communication do you have with him, and what do you say if you could?
It's always ongoing dialogue, clearly. He's an important player for us, clearly. So he's in some really good form, regardless of where we're actually or how it's speculated. All I can see is what Tom's doing, and he's a very important part of our group. This group has had a real determination to be able to stick together, and I've got nothing to suggest otherwise than he's fully invested in us, and that's all I really care about.
If the money discrepancy is true, what's your sell to keep him at the club?
Yeah, I can't hypothetically answer that question. I can sort of only really deal with the evidence in front, and obviously we state our case as anybody else that has interest, and that's sort of the nature of the business today. But I think what we do really well is let the people deal with that. He's got his own management to deal with that. We've obviously got our list management crew that deal with that, and we get on with the performance.
He seems a pretty relaxed character, and his performance clearly hasn't been too affected. How have you guys been helping him through that? Because obviously expectation comes with talk of big pay offers and being in demand, and in terms of that week to week.
Yeah, just like I'll probably speak about this weekly in presser, and the bigger picture of things, and we just don't drift there really that much. We've always got the eye on the future, but it's very much about the here and now, and so I guess the way to answer that is really to get on with your job and continue to make yourself better, and he makes us better and brings unique strengths to us, and that's all we really worry about. He's an important member of our team, and we want to get the best out of him because he's important to us.
How big is that ruck battle going to be? Tristan Cherry's been in great form, and obviously Tom may go forward a bit, and you've obviously got Pido in there as well.
Well, he's probably been, I don't think I've been too overshooting the mark when I say he's probably been almost the best ruckman in the comp right now in terms of results. So he's been a very important player. So aware with the task that we've got there. He's also got a fair bit of assistance on the ground as well. So yeah, there'll be a few balls that'll be sort of floating around at the feet of those two ruckmen. They'll have their own little duel, no doubt, but it'll be ably supported by a group under them, and it's going to be a pretty important part of the game for us.
Voss, have you reassessed the sort of little tweaks to the style? You know, that when you look at the Hawthorn sort of crisp ball movement, Carlton's method traditionally has been crash and bash contest. Do you think at any point the game sort of pivots away from the real balls going to work and more about getting outside and hitting targets?
I think the future of that game's been there for better part of 8 to 10 years. So I don't think it's anything new. It's not a new conversation to us, and so we've been able to pivot, I think, pretty well over the last 2 or 3 years, and been able to adapt different things in our game style. As personnel's changed, as list has changed and evolved, we've been able to make those bigger picture changes to meet where the current demands of the game are. But I don't think we also need to look further than how we execute. And when we execute well, we play a style that can stack up against some pretty good teams. And I think that's already shown against teams so far this year that it's stacked up pretty well. But we've had a few opportunities that we haven't been able to finish, and it's amazing what outcomes to do to make that process just look a little bit better.
Did you turn a corner, do you think, against West Coast, or is it too early to tell?
It's too early to tell. I think you've got to get more evidence. But to be fair, also, there's enough evidence to suggest that we're focusing on the right things, and so we haven't shifted off that. I think there's probably a lot of other reasons to probably shift your focus somewhere else, but we've been really dialed in on that our defence gets us in good positions and it'll generate our opportunities. What we've got to be able to do is clearly the improvement comes when we can finish those a little more consistently.
I mean, how important is it then to back up that with banking another win against a team that will probably give you a good run for your money to show that this wasn't a flash in the pan and you are taking those sort of more sustainable steps towards turning the corner?
I think it's always that step where you're looking for advancement and progression in everything you do, and I don't think we've treated, I hope that we haven't treated necessarily the win any different to our loss the week before. We're trying to establish a really consistent environment. We try to look at all the information we get and see points of improvement, and I look at, for example, some of the things that happened over the game last week that we've done pretty well previously, but we didn't necessarily do well against West Coast. But yet the scoreboard looks fantastic. So for us, we go back into what makes us and what we need to value. And as you mentioned, it's a pretty big game. So the boys can't wait to get out there.
How's Harry doing? Obviously, gets himself back out there on the good track, and then he cops the concussion. How's he going?
Fairly unlucky. I think you could sort of play another 100 games and that wouldn't happen again. It was very, very unlucky. But look, he obviously misses this week. He should be right to go for next week. So obviously he's still got to get through the protocols and make sure he's ticking the boxes there. So we take caution there, but he's tracking along as expected. He's in training, doing everything that's needed. So expect him to take his position next week. But obviously he's clearly a very important player to us. It doesn't look completely like us without necessarily Harry and Charlie up there completely. But what we've really prided ourselves on as well is we've taken a squad mentality, and the next guy comes in and gets a job done. He's really clear on what he needs to be able to do and compete with, and if he can do that, then it puts us in a great position to be able to win this game.
Speaking of the squad, you've had a look at one of the Campos, and Ashton Moyer's had a leak. How far off do you reckon Ashton and the Campos are from genuinely becoming first choices for you? No, there's
still got a bit of work to do. Look, I think the season for us, just in terms of bigger picture, we haven't had a lot of VFL games. So I think we've had two games, I think. I could be even wrong with that. So there hasn't been a lot of a body of work, if you want to call it that. So we've had to rely a little bit on our training and some of that exposure that you highlighted, and they're really clear what they need to be able to work on. So some time spent there to be able to go back and work on their craft, get really clear on their role. Doesn't mean that opportunity is not soon, but they've obviously still got a little bit of work to do.